In today's video, we'll cover one of the most important things you can do to improve your mental health, your productivity, and your overall well-being. I have found thousands of videos sharing mental health tips, productivity tips, avoiding burnout tips, but I didn't find many connecting all those in a mind and body context. So I thought, why not create one? Our journey today starts in the ancient Greek city of Miletus, the birthplace of the pre-Socratic philosopher Thales. Thales once asked a very simple question: who is happy? And if you know Greeks, then you know that when they ask you a question, it's not for you to reply, but for them to give you an answer. So he said, he who has a healthy body, a resourceful mind, and a docile nature. Some 500 years later, the Roman poet Juvenal said the famous mens sana in corpore sano, which means a healthy mind lives in a healthy body. So today we will explore this mind and body connection. We will see how nailing the balance between our body and mind can help us improve our mental health, develop our character, and achieve the things we want to achieve in life. The thing is that we think we know more nowadays than what our ancestors used to know. And yes, we might have more knowledge at a collective level, but we have lost the wisdom and the practical knowledge at the individual level. The link between mind and body has been a source of debate for a long time in the modern Western world, and we still don't know anything close to it as our ancestors did. But what more and more studies reveal is how strong this link is. And one finding tops everything else: that our minds can help our bodies get better, and our bodies can help our minds get better. This is something that is not used enough in the Western way of thought. The Western way of thinking, especially in sciences, is suffering from the compartmentalization of the human being to physical and psychological, somatic and mental, tangible and intangible. Psychologists and psychiatrists are much more interested in helping us solve our problems with techniques that work either on a cognitive or emotional level, or techniques that change the chemistry of our brains with drugs. To put it simply, there's not enough focus in helping us solve our problems with techniques that work on the body and mind connection, on seeing the human organism as a system that weaves together the physical and the psychological. But for many of us, changing at the level of our bodies may be the key to a better life. If there's one thing I want you to remember from this video, then this is it: that every living organism, from the simplest, tiniest bacterium to the most complex organism on Earth, which by the way, it's not us, we all share one thing in common. We approach whatever is nurturing and we avoid whatever is toxic. That is a principle that I'll be using in many videos, as I think it's the cornerstone that governs both physical and psychological systems. So not only do we approach what's nurturing and avoid what's toxic, but we also manifest the effects of what's nurturing and what's toxic. We manifest them both physically and psychologically. Think when you feel confident and great in your skin. That's a nurturing psychological state. You again walk upwards, your chest is out, your shoulders are back, your eyes look straight, nothing can hurt you. And now think when you feel depressed, you walk as if gravity pulls your entire body down, you slouch, you look down, you feel small. The toxic feeling of depression is inside of you. So paying attention to this relationship between what's nurturing and what's toxic, and how it weaves together the physical and the psychological world, can help us learn a lot about ourselves. It can help us learn about the character of the mind from the character of the body. And it can also help us learn about the character of the body from the character of the mind. Okay, cool. So how do we learn about our psychosomatic character? Firstly, we need to understand what character as a word means. The etymology of the word character is this which engraves, this which leaves a mark. So character originally meant engraving tool, and then it got the meaning of a mark made with a graving tool. This engraved mark became a distinctive mark, the character that marked one thing as different from another, and eventually the sum of the features which distinguish a thing or a person. The same thing goes for our psyche. When our life experiences leave a mark on us, and the sum of the marks of the experiences we had form our character, both physiologically and psychologically. So here's an example. Imagine a girl or a boy going through puberty and growing faster than their friends, than their classmates. either in height or in certain parts of their body. What often happens then is that kids who grow faster are becoming more conscious of their bodies. They feel that they can be seen more than their friends, so this might make them feel embarrassed, and they usually don't like to stand out. The solution to avoid embarrassment, to avoid to be seen, is to hunch over, to appear smaller or make themselves less visible. In other words, the solution to a psychological challenge is a physiological adjustment, a characteristic with the sense of the word that we explained earlier that follows you throughout life, mind and body connection. Another example is, let's say that when you were young, maybe your parents put you down or made fun of you instead of showing you how to live well and how to do well in life. Now, their behavior affects how you grow as an individual. Who you become is likely to be shaped by self-limiting thought patterns and negative emotions like anger, hatred, anxiety, and fear. But this way of thinking, feeling, and being is not only in the mind. Our thoughts cause us to act or not to act. And action is a physical thing. Emotions are felt in the mind, but they also show up in the body. And this affects the way our bodies are built. The things we carried around in our childhood can weigh us down, not only mentally, but also physically, and make it hard for our bodies to work at their optimal levels. So if you were brought up within a loving and caring environment that nurtures your needs and exposes you to the challenges of the world gradually, you grow up confident, you stand up tall, you look at the challenge straight in the eye and you're ready for it. If on the other hand you were brought up in a way that made you scared, you will tend to physically slouch as if gravity is pulling you down. Your insecurity will make you want to hide from the world and its challenges. So we all know instinctively that a person's body shows what kind of person they are, which is why we can read people by watching how they move. So now we know how our body affects the mind and how the mind affects the body. Therefore, one of the best ways to build a great character is to train our bodies to reach their highest potential. Just like how we think and feel changes how our bodies are built, in the same way how we hold and move our bodies also changes how we think and feel. One way to be brave, for example, would be to change how we deal with our feelings. In parallel, we can also start holding and moving our bodies in a way that shows and encourages bravery. However, in order to employ this method for character development, to use our bodies, that is, for the development of our mind, we must first get our head around the physiological ideal toward which we should strive, because that would be our true North Star, which we will use to move towards that direction. And I want to make a pause here and say that that's a good concept to keep in mind in general, because in this time and age where everybody's looking for 5 tips for better mental health, or 10 tips for better body posture, or 105 tips for increased productivity, none of this matters if you haven't found your own personal philosophy of life. Defining your own philosophy around your psychology and around your physiology is difficult, but it's also necessary. Because none of these things, none of the 5 things to do to get better XYZ, none of this will work in the long run unless you have a very grounded philosophy of life. So when it comes to finding your Northern Star about our body and mind connection, the first thing we need to realize is that the more mental disorders become common, the more people's bodies are also becoming abnormal. And yes, there's a big discussion here about what's normal, but what is perceived as normal nowadays should not be taken as a sign of health. What I mean by that is that if you observe closely the average person today, you will notice that there's rigidity and awkwardness in movement. There's either compulsivity or impulsivity in action, and we need to get away from all these traits. Because if you really think about the fundamentals of how certain emotions impact the body, you'll find that our emotional imbalance, for example, brings impulsive movement. Another example is that OCD brings rigidity in movement. In other words, someone with a weak sense of self would usually be impulsive and frustrated, while someone who wants to maintain control, or someone with a lot of ego, would usually have some sort of mechanical movement, because everything needs to be planned in his mind in a certain way so that he or she appears to others in a certain way. Now let's look at how someone who is emotionally grounded would be carrying themselves. A person who is doing well within has a certain grace in how they move. They can also be aggressive, or better put it, assertive. So basically being the opposite of passive. But first, let's see about the graceful movement. So what is a graceful movement? You can think about it as the movement that is the outcome of someone who is not self-conscious and moves with ease. They don't worry about how others see them, but that's different from not taking care of one's self. They move with an effortless coordination. And now let's spend a couple of minutes talking about the assertiveness, the aggression in motion. So the assertive person doesn't just sit around and wait for life to just happen. Instead, he or she is proactive. People like this move through life looking for what exactly they need. All living things, if you think about it, are naturally aggressive. And they should be, because without it, they wouldn't be able to survive. Remember this natural inclination we have towards what's nurturing versus what's toxic? So sometimes toxic things are being imposed on us by others, be it at work, in a marriage, in a friendly relationship. And if you lack the capacity of being assertive to define your boundaries, then toxicity takes you over gradually. I made another video a couple of weeks ago where I explained how to know yourself, and I speak about this extensively. I'll put a link for that video as well. So a sin we commit against ourselves is that we, humans, are the only living thing that can trick ourselves into thinking that being passive is a good way to live. Our urge to be assertive when something toxic is happening to us can definitely be suppressed, but it cannot be taken away. So if this impulse to push away something that is not good for you, either psychologically or physically, is not expressed, then what will happen is that at some point, since this energy hasn't found a healthy way out, it will explode within you. More and more doctors nowadays find links between many autoimmune diseases and people's inability to express themselves in a healthy way. So then the question becomes, how does one with healthy aggression act? Alexander Lowen was a great psychotherapist, and in his book, The Voice of the Body, which I have used for today's video, says that the part of our body which is mainly responsible for our aggression is our legs. Our legs are what moves us through life. So having weak or stiff legs or living a more passive life will make it harder to be aggressive. When we stand with our weight on the balls of our feet and our knees slightly bent, it can make us feel more aggressive, more assertive. So our connection to the ground basically is what makes us feel more or less aggressive. Or as Lowen puts it, having some ground to stand on has both a psychological and a literal meaning. Psychologically, it means that the person has a good reason or cause for his aggressive action. Without the inner conviction, right or wrong, that one's aggression is justified, it would be difficult to move forward effectively. In another sense, the term having some ground to stand on means that the person feels he has a right to be on this earth. To evaluate how strongly a person feels this right, we can measure how strongly he can hold his ground. Broadly speaking, we can say that the more grounded a person is in his legs, the more strongly he can hold his ground. He will feel that he has some ground to stand on and therefore some standing as a person. As you see throughout the video, I'm not sharing any tips for anything. We're just exploring psychological, biological, and philosophical concepts that you can use to define your own philosophy of life and how you will move forward. I believe that this is the first step to a well-lived life, and not sharing tips to hack life. Life is not to be hacked. Life is to be lived, not to be cheated with tips and tricks that might work in the short term, because in the long term what matters is your own North Star, your own philosophy of life. If you like this video, hit the like button. It's a small act you can do that means a lot to me and to the future of this channel. And if you want to receive more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm Dimitris, and I share insights and tools for how to live a well-lived life.